Hey guys, so good news, we didn't die. Bad news is we didn't finish the 100. So one, sorry for the delay. Things have been absolutely insane around here in a great way. But obviously we have stopped pumping out podcasts. We've dialed back on our content and stuff. And we apologize. So we gained so much traction right off the rip. You guys have been great, like supporting all of our stuff. And unfortunately, like we just got overwhelmed with opportunity. So good problem on our end, but we are committing to never doing this again. So right now, like starting today, this will be consistent from here on out. So we were give you guys at least one podcast every single week. And then we're going to have a plethora of content coming out. We've hired a full marketing and content team. We've done a whole bunch of stuff, but let's start with the 100 miler because we had this huge build up to that and we kind of left you guys on a cliffhanger. So we're going to put out a good amount of content, like a recap of like all the footage from it, you know, the stories of what happened, all that stuff. But to keep a very long story short, we were unable to finish. Unfortunately, I got like 69 miles in, and to be completely honest, I just broke mentally. So one of the biggest things going into this of like everybody that I watched, listened to, like coached me, whatever, everybody talks about mile 70 and that it's like the turning point for everybody. It's either you're going to finish or you're not. So the loop or the course that we ran was like a down back. You run out 25 miles, you run back to the starting point, and then the second 25 and back, they had to change the course. So it's like instead of just going down and back, you have a couple down and backs that you have to do. And around like miles 60-ish, I like started adding up miles in my head, and I'm like, oh, okay, I just have to do one there and back, and then I'm heading back to the finish. So I'm like all pumped up about it. And I realized when I got back to like our aid station, I'm asking everybody like, okay, now I just have to go down and back, right? Like, no, you have like, I think 2 or 3 more down and backs. And it broke me. So the whole thing with the running and everything that we've talked about has just been like staying in the fight mentally. As soon as I seen that finish line in my head and then it kind of got ripped out from under me, I just was never able to get myself back in the fight. But good news is we're going to shoot for it again this October. And it's going to be 100 here in Lima. So it'll actually be cool to be able to complete the first 100 here locally. But like I said, we're going to give you guys a whole bunch of content, recap all the stuff that happened with the race. Overall, it was an amazing experience. Our team was incredible. We had like a whole bunch of people that came and dedicated like their whole weekend to doing this stuff. So overall went great. Downside, didn't finish. But since then, so that was in October. I can't even believe that that's been 5 months. It's insane to even say that. A lot has happened with like our business, with building legacy, with all the businesses that we have. Biggest thing is that we have like condensed everything that we're doing down into like 2 focal points. So I have sold off some businesses. I have stepped away from some businesses. I have put like all of my eggs in the Easy Electronics basket. And then Building Legacy is now like just our overarching umbrella that holds everything for Easy Electronics, our pet washes, our real estate stuff. And Building Legacy is the thing that we want to push for like content and stuff. But Easy is doing phenomenal. So we obviously have like mentioned a little bit here and there throughout some of this content that, you know, me and Dakota started this thing and then we've been able to scale it and grow it. Well, the last 6 months have been like it's been rocket fuel on this business. It's came with like bringing on a bunch more people onto our team, came with huge shifts in our business. And we're going to get into a whole lot of that stuff. But one of the main things is we have been fortunate enough to find A players and bring A players onto the team. So I actually have one of them with us today. So Dylan is one of those A players. And Dylan came into Easy as our COO. He's probably one of the youngest COOs that anybody's ever seen. But no, so the biggest thing is like having good people obviously around us and like filling in all the gaps that I have that everybody like in our business wasn't able to fill on their own. And we've been super fortunate. So we brought on our crew is at like 17 people now, I think.
Yeah.
Right? 17, which is insane because a year ago we were at 4. So it's been massive growth. But yeah, I want to talk a little bit about just like where you come from. And so I know obviously a good amount, but to fill everybody in on like your background, what you're doing here. And then I want to get into more of like what we're doing with Easy.
Perfect. First of all, that was a super good segue. That was impressive.
Oh, thanks.
So
Took some time off, but I still got some stuff in there.
You still got it. So a little bit about my background. So you want me to start from the beginning or just like
Yeah,
what
I mean,
have
just even,
experience in? Or?
yeah, just even, I think TQL is like one of the main points because that is like the thing that made you the perfect fit for here.
Okay.
Oh, actually, no, let's start with Cam. Because Cam's obviously been on the podcast, and anybody that doesn't know who Cam is, Cam runs our marketing and content division, and he went to Temple here, met you. You guys are best friends. He came up to me one day and was like, I have the guy. Like, I know that he's the right guy. I just need to get you on the phone with him. We did a phone call, and then, yeah, you can kind of pick it up from there.
Okay. So that puts us at like sophomore year of high school.
Mm-hmm.
Me and Cam actually have not known each other for super long. If I count those years in my head, it's probably like 7 or 8 now. But we've pretty much done everything together up until, I guess, probably the biggest split, I guess, was college. So when I was at TQL or after I finished college, that's where he started working for you and I started doing the whole TQL thing. But I'll bring it to, I guess, my perspective from like before I got introduced to you and the business and everything, and then kind of go through that because I think that process was pretty cool. So I was at TQL, and that is the second biggest freight brokerage in the U.S. I think they have like 11,000 employees. 6,000 of them are brokers, and then the rest is just support for the brokers.
Owner's the richest dude in Cincinnati.
Yeah, he's like
literally the richest guy in Cincinnati.
Net worth perspective, because TQL is still privately traded, so he owns obviously a huge portion
Chunk
of it.
Yeah.
But net worth, yeah, he's just about at $1 billion.
It's insane.
Yeah, which it's also crazy how few billionaires there are, because you look at like Elon Musk and you see he's worth like 150 billion. So you think there's got to be a lot of people with at least one.
Yeah.
But everything is exponential. So like there's, I don't know exactly how many there are, but there's not many.
It's not a lot.
Yeah. So that's TQL. I was a broker, so that is just sales. My background before that, like college, was finance, so nothing to do with sales. I just knew that sales experience is super valuable, just because like it just has so much overlap just in so many different areas of your life. Pretty much everything is sales. Like if you try and get a girl's number, that's sales.
Yeah.
If you're in a job interview, that's sales.
Right.
Pretty much any type of persuasion or presenting yourself in a certain way.
Yeah.
It's all sales.
Talking yourself out of your bedtime when you're a kid, sales.
Yeah.
Like literally everything.
Trying to convince yourself of things is sales.
Yeah.
So I knew it'd be super good. It was definitely like high risk, just because TQL in general just has a super high turnover. But I was like 100%, I was more along the lines of, if I knew it was like a skill thing, then I could do it, without the sales type experience. So like that was the number one question that I was asking when I first got there. Like, did all these people get lucky? Because there was I think only 3% of the people who came in the doors were successful after, I don't know the exact timeline, but like a year,
Right.
Which is obviously super low. So it's like, if there's really that much waiting on the other side of that door, and it's not luck, like how is it really that hard? So that was like my main question. And I think it got answered for me pretty well, just how I went about everything. Because a lot of the people who were successful at TQL, they didn't have like, because I guess I'm trying to figure out how to explain all this without getting into too much backstory, but it's reoccurring sales. So it's not like car sales where every sale you make is just, there's some commission and then you just keep selling and you get more commission as it comes. It's all reoccurring. So basically if I have a customer, I'm going to keep working with that customer and build the relationship over time.
Right.
And that's partly what attracted me to it, just because it is, with it being reoccurring, it is also, it's possible for me to grow it exponentially, because if most of my work on the front end is spent selling, and then it only takes me 10% of my time to actually run the book that I'm building, then as long as I can always keep selling, I can always keep growing. And then I can hire people to kind of do the book managing side of things. So then I can always just keep dumping fuel on the fire, and it can grow to something that you wouldn't be able to grow in normal, like, I guess, one-time sales.
Right.
So that was really what attracted me to it. Another thing was I was moving to Cincinnati anyways, because my wife's going to UC grad school there. So I was moving there anyways, and they reached out to me at like the perfect time. Literally got a LinkedIn message, like not even a job posting or anything.
Oh, they reached out to you?
Yeah, just randomly.
Really? Like you weren't even trying to find a sales position or nothing?
No.
So you literally only went into it to build the sales skill, but just because you knew that that was going to be a good skill.
I mean, when
there was a lot of opportunity if you did it right.
That was part of it. The other part of it was like I heard them out, and like I put these pieces together without them putting them together for me. Like as far as it being reoccurring sales and like the upside potential, and they threw all the statistics at me. Like if you're here for 2 years, you make 500,000 a year or whatever.
Yeah.
But I see their turnover, so I wasn't like.
Yeah, you're smart enough to not. Yeah, to not let them.
They didn't fool me. I was just arrogant enough to take the risk. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, they reached out to me though on LinkedIn. I wasn't looking for a sales spot. It was like right as I was starting to look for stuff in Cincinnati. So yeah, it was perfect timing. I don't know if they didn't do that. I highly doubt I would have looked for something in sales, even though I knew that it was super valuable experience.
And that was only how long ago?
2022. So 2 years.
When you started TQL?
I started in October of 22.
That's insane. Yeah. I'm just thinking about what was happening with Easy in October of 22. And that was like us pushing the end of the first year of Easy existing. So we would have been 8 months into the business. And that was honestly like just when the shift started to happen of me actually jumping into Easy. Because in that first like 6 to 8 months, I was maybe spending like 10 hours a week dealing with stuff for Easy. And I had all my other stuff going on. So that was like right when I was like, oh, there's actually something to this. Like I could scale this a lot.
Yeah.
So, and you started your training right at the perfect time.
Yeah. Well, time moves differently for you, and it also moved differently in TQL because it felt like an eternity. Like if when you first get there, they take your picture just for like your team's picture and everything.
Right.
And I swear I aged like 20 years just in the 1 year that I was there.
Have you ever seen that with the presidents? Like the before and after their president? Yeah,
Yeah.
like they aged 20 years and 4 years for sure.
Yeah.
But
They get a lot of money though, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was there for a year, October 22, moved to Cincinnati, started all that super quick. And I loved it. I really enjoyed, I guess, learning, like building the process that I used to close a bunch, just like a little bit of my background while I was there. Because my whole thing was like, I need to see the path. As long as I can see the path, then I'll do anything to make it happen. So like there was a lot of people, like I said, since it's recurring sales, the people who were successful, a lot of them only had 4 or 5 customers. And to me, that was a super big turnoff just because I can't, when the sample size is that low, I can't control if I'm going to close those people. Because in sales, like a lot of it is a numbers game because that's the part that negates all the luck. So if I can get as good as I can and then also do the numbers game, then I negate the luck in that way. But then when you add into the fact that like maybe the only people who are going to make me successful at TQL are super, super major corporations, then it's like my luck is 0 at that point.
Right.
So I didn't like that. So I wanted to find a way to build a book with like a bunch of like smaller to medium sized customers. Because then I felt like if I could, that was just more repeatable. You know what I mean? Like if I can figure out a way to get those leads just consistently and then close those, then I can build it slowly. And then it doesn't matter how slow I grow because it's reoccurring. So if it still only takes me 15% of my time to manage the book, then I can still just keep growing. And it like I could have a book of 200 customers and it wouldn't matter. and then I would hire people to
manage
handle
it.
that 15%
Right.
and then just keep selling. So that was really my approach to it. And when Cam told me, which I already knew, like about not necessarily Easy, but about you and about the whole building legacy thing. And I watched a couple episodes of the podcast, never like fully through or anything, but I followed the 100 miler thing. And like on the 100 miler thing, I know I told you this already, but just for the podcast.
Yeah.
The 60 miler, by the way.
Yeah, 60 miler.
Wait, what?
Ooh.
That was for the 60 miler.
Oh, okay.
yeah.
I was like, wait, what?
I thought you
Because
were
it was
saying 60
69, brother. Yeah.
No.
I got you.
Yeah, I thought he was like
I thought he
rubbing it
was
in.
too. I thought he was jabbing a little bit. Okay, yeah. So he's saying the race before the 100. It was our last training race. It was a 60-mile race because it was like 62 miles or something because it was 100K.
Which you've told that story for that one. Yeah, you have, because I saw the video
Yeah.
where you did.
Yeah.
But the doctor, after you ate, was it ibuprofen?
Yeah.
The 20 ibuprofen
Just a
pills
couple
or
of them,
whatever.
yeah.
Yeah. A whole bottle. The doctor that you called was actually Cam calling me.
Right.
Because my wife is in neuroscience and her sister is a pharmacist.
Right.
So then we had like a conference call to figure out if you were going to die or not.
Yeah, yeah, and that's why I told you, like, actually, you saved my life before
Yeah.
you even started here, and I didn't even know it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that was, I think, when was that race?
That was the month. That was the beginning of September, because it was like just exactly a month before October, which was our 100-miler.
And then Cam had me call you in December, so it was not too long after that.
Yeah, yeah.
But when Cam told me that you were going to call me, I don't know if it, from your perspective, I don't know if it was an interview or not, because the only thing I got from Cam was that he's like, hey, literally just texting me. This is right in the middle of the day. There's a whole bunch of crazy stuff going on my end, like trucks are on fire, everything. And he's like, oh, hey, you just got to talk to Devin for like 15 minutes. Just tell him the TQL story. And that's all I got. Like I had no context.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's all I had.
He didn't even say, like, tell him the TQL story because we're trying to figure out if you're a good fit for the job. Wow.
No. Yeah, zero
funny.
context.
Yeah.
Which I knew, like, to some extent, it like maybe it was that a little bit,
Right.
like testing the waters, but like I didn't know you guys were looking for a COO.
Gotcha.
I originally, I think Cam mentioned me being a part of the creative team. So
That's wild.
Yeah, that's a terrible idea.
That's wild. Okay.
So that's all the context I have. And then I literally went out to my Jeep, got in my Jeep, and then called you. And then that was that call where I told you that whole story. I don't know if you want me to.
No. So, well, we don't have to go through the whole story, but that call, so I knew that it was an interview, obviously, because the whole reason that Cam put me on the phone with you was he was like, I think that I have a guy that might be the right guy. And he was like, I just wanted him to tell you this one story. And if you talk to him, I feel like you'll get it. And obviously we've talked, I feel like one of my biggest strengths is like being able to like read people to a certain extent and know what personality or what person fits for what I'm looking for, whatever. You told that story and I immediately told Cam, like, yeah, that's the right guy. Because to sum up the whole story, you basically told me the whole complexity of how your guys' CRM at TQL worked, of how you broke their system essentially and like use their system to create a funnel for yourself that like would just spit out the right answer basically by just layering all their tools together. But you explained it to me in a way that like I got 80% of the way there of like exactly what you were doing. And I'd never even seen their system. And it was like so detailed that I told Cam, like, that's the right guy. Then you started and I was like, oh, that's like the super right guy, because like everything about your personality has turned out to fit like exactly what we needed for that spot. But it's just been crazy that like, one, you happen to know Cam and it's a good fit. Two, that you go through sales experience, and then we come in here and one of the first moves that we make is putting together the sales program and then putting a sales team together and stuff. And all the pieces have just lined up like insanely.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been pretty
It's been
good.
nuts.
And it's only been
2 years.
6 weeks. Yeah, 2 years it feels like.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna
Well,
look like I'm 60 when I'm 27.
yeah. I had a full head of hair, like a bushy mohawk when I started with Easy. And that's only been 2 years. No. So with Easy specifically, like, I want to talk about what we're doing with Easy and the scale of it, because with building legacy right now, like we've obviously talked a ton about like personal growth and development and all that stuff. And one of the like pillars of building legacy is like building and scaling businesses. And I feel like that's the part that we've kind of brushed over and not really got to like dive deep on. But we want to start having like you on here, Cam, you know what I mean? The people in the business so that people can get to understand who the pieces are of our company and then what we're really doing with it so that they can try to figure out if it works for them or take bits and pieces. So yeah, I want to kind of get into like the sales program a little bit because that is like one of the biggest shifts that we have made in the business that totally pivoted the direction that we were going and made it 10 times more scalable. Honestly, like 50, 100 times more scalable.
Yeah, I'll actually walk you through the thought process in my head as to why I came up with that sales process idea. And I'm trying to like dance around like proprietary information and stuff.
Yeah, I know that's what's going to be difficult.
Cam can edit it out.
But Hormozy does the best job of this. Like he gives you just enough that you can act on it, and it's like good, actionable steps to take. But he never gives you the exact secret sauce.
Right.
So I can tell you what I think is one of the biggest points of the sales thing is everybody's bottleneck in business is trying to figure out how do you duplicate yourself. Like if you're one person doing something and you're doing it right and you're doing it over and over, right? And you know that it works. It's like, okay, but how can I get that to happen 5 more times if I don't have 5 times the amount of time? That makes sense?
It does make sense. I don't know if that problem is possible to solve with individuals though. Like
I feel like that's what we solved with the sales program though, because our problem was how do we duplicate the success that Dakota had in sales? Because Dakota didn't have time to sell any more than he was.
Right.
And so that was like the biggest shift for us is if we do that though, how do we, like where we were stuck was how do we actually create customer service that's handling these clients properly? How do we get the leads in the door? All this different stuff. And one of the biggest like shifts for us was figuring out, okay, we need to create like a commission-based sales team that is tethered to the outcomes of their clients so that when their clients have wins, they have wins. When their clients have losses, they have losses. Because it created an ecosystem where we didn't have to be so hands-on with all the clients. Our account managers, like our salespeople, took that upon themselves because they were more successful if their clients were more successful.
Yeah, well, I guess the single point of contact thing, the reason that was a big idea for me is because I saw how big of a problem it was going to get as we scaled. Mm-hmm. So like the way that we do a lot of things with a bunch of people in the loop with responding to customers and like all the notifications we're getting just at our current level, it just would not have been scalable whatsoever. So we really needed to like, obviously you're familiar with Price's Law. Mm-hmm. So like, that's what I was thinking about is like,
explain that though. So anybody
sure.
that doesn't know.
So Price's Law goes by a bunch of different names. Right. 80-20 rule is probably like the most explanation you can get with it in the name, I guess. But it's basically like if you have a bunch of employees, 80% of the work is done by 20% of the people.
Right.
And it applies to like a whole bunch of different areas of life, like wealth, for example, like 80% of the wealth is held by 20% of the people. 80% of the taxes are paid by 20% of the people. It's basically just like a representation of how exponential everything is. But in like business, trying to figure out ways to avoid Price's Law is super powerful because like, for example, with how we were doing stuff, it's just a lot of everybody was getting notified of everything, but really there were only a handful of people who were actually doing stuff about it. And then obviously that's not scalable because when you get to a point where instead of 100 clients or instead of 50 clients, you have 10,000 clients, like how are you going to get more of the 20%? How are you going to target that?
Right.
And then if you can identify who the 20% are, why not cut the 80 and then do it again and then just keep doing that?
Right.
So I guess with the sales thing is that really avoids it because So let me go back to like when I said, I don't know if you can duplicate yourself. I guess I was talking not just in general, I was talking about like the business owner, because part of being the business owner is you are most attached to the outcome.
Yeah.
And that is not possible to duplicate unless you attach other people to the outcome as much as you are.
Right.
Which is hard. But with sales, you're like the single point of contact sales thing. We're basically structuring it so that these salespeople are running their own businesses. So they are the business owner as far as how it functions. Like everything functions to where they are the business owner.
Yeah,
So we're
our
creating
whole operations team is just their support team, basically.
Yeah.
The whole business is based around supporting salespeople at this point.
Right. But what we're doing is we're creating a bunch of people who are going to be waking up at 4 a.m. and then leaving work at 8 p.m. because they are most attached to the outcome, which it's good for everybody. It's good for them. It's good for us. As far as like we're not like forcing them to do anything. We're just creating a situation where they actually reap the rewards of their effort.
Yeah.
Which there's a lot of people. Like I've talked to you a few times, like responsibility is the cure all, because you take a lot of people where when you give them responsibility, they really step up to the plate, and that's super powerful. So really we just created a system where salespeople are fully attached to the outcome with everything that they do. So that way it incentivizes them to do, to work super hard like they own the business.
Right.
And that is how you duplicate the 20%. And then create a structure that's also super scalable, because just how everything is flowing, it just makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, well, and with the sales thing too, we had a point where we built this amazing system that tracked everything that we needed to track and all that stuff. And then we were like, okay, all we have to do is just dump salespeople into it now. And then the good ones will work and the bad ones will drown. And who cares? Like, let's just put 50 salespeople in there and we'll get 5 great ones, and then put another 50, get 5 more good ones. And then we shifted to a totally different way of going about the sales team, because your strong suit with TQL matched really well with my strong suit with my sales background, because your sales background was in making sure that you could take something that wasn't hot and ready to close right now and nurture it for a long period of time and then eventually get it to close.
Right.
My sales background is like, I'm going to pitch you and I'm going to close you right now. And if you don't close, if you even seem like, say, 20% interested, you're probably never going to hear from me again. You're going to have to be like 60% there, and then I'll take you to the other 40, but I'm not going to take you from 20 and get you all the way interested. But the combination of us two, we were like, wait, what the hell are we doing? Like, why wouldn't we just have me teaching them that front end part of the sale, close it right now, the hot leads, all that stuff, cold calling, and then let you set up and work with them on a system of like, hey, how can you take these leads and get them through the process to actually close them? And the combination of those two things, I feel like, is one of the things that most sales teams are missing, because they're either really good in one area or the other. They don't usually have both.
Right. And a lot of sales teams don't have sales managers who
actually know how to sell.
Yeah, pretty much. Like my thing, and the reason I got good at the nurturing thing is because when I say that's the only thing that worked, it is the only thing that worked. Like I ran the numbers as far as like what our close rate was per call, just from like some very rough estimates. But if you want to be conservative with it, the numbers I had were like a close was 1 in 15,000 for outbound calls. So if you want to be super conservative, let's say 1 in 10,000, and that's still ridiculous, right? Like if you make 100 calls a day, I don't want to do the math in my head, but that's like 100 days.
A lot. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a lot.
So when I saw that, I knew that I had like, is there a system that's like possible at all? And if there was, I was going to figure it out, and there was. And what that system was is basically having my hand in a bunch of different pots, just because the way that logistics works, it is long-term, but it's super competitive. So everybody that I was closing was getting called a bunch, like anywhere from 10 to 100 times a day, they were getting calls. So the biggest thing is standing out. And how you stand out is actually doing the opposite of what everybody else tells you, no matter what that is. So this is going to change like industry to industry. But in logistics, everybody tries to close in one call. So if all you do is don't try to close in one call, Now maybe there's 5 of 100 people that do that. And now you're part of that 5. And those 5 that are separate from the 100, those 5 are going to be, the people who are in the game for actually closing the customer. So then what I did basically was just, I had my hands in 50 different pots doing that, and I was a part of the 5. So my close rate was literally 10 times probably the average sales rep just doing that. And maybe I don't know if like that's necessarily a sales skill. Like that might just be a strategy that like I was able to find. And then I knew that that's how I would close in that industry. Because there's definitely people who are 100 times better than me at sales.
I feel like that is sales though, because just like you said, like everything is sales. The fact that you knew to be like, okay, I'm going to act totally different than everybody else is acting. You still had to actually be able to act like that, because you know how in like the cold calls we talked about, like one of the worst things that you can do is sound like you're selling right off the bat, because instantly all the sales resistance is up. Most of the time people are checking out or they're just going to hang up on you. If you can figure out how not to sound like a salesperson, you can actually keep them on the phone long enough to even get them to hear your pitch. That's pretty much the exact same thing that you're doing. Like,
yeah.
So you were selling because you still had to figure out, how do I call them and not sound like I'm selling them whatsoever to even be part of the 5?
Yeah. And I thought about all those details too. Like I thought about why new sales is like that. And it's because old sales, people were trustworthy and like they would actually trust somebody who's selling them. So you could say, oh, well, I have the solution for XYZ. This is the problem you're having, and here's the solution. And then whoever you're selling to would believe you. But then obviously if something works, everybody's going to step into the market until it doesn't work,
right?
Including people who are lying. So people figured out like, hey, if we just tell them it works, then they're going to buy whatever product we're selling.
Yeah. What
even
do you
if
think
it's not
that
the
is?
solution.
Like, because salespeople in general definitely have a bad rap. Like now more than probably any other time in history. Like, and it's not getting better; it's getting worse.
It will never. I don't think it'll ever get better, because the only reason, because I think it is a response to what used to work. Because what used to work is doing that, right? Like explaining why you have the solution, and then there were a bunch of honest salespeople, and they really did have the solution. But then what that did is it created an opportunity for people to come in who didn't have the solution and then say the same thing. And then basically, obviously, the consumer can't tell the difference between the two. So then they associated those two types of salespeople together. And now, if you sound like you're selling at all, it's almost like hardwired in our brains to just immediately the guardrails go up, and like you're not going to buy no matter what it is.
Well, and we're getting sold so much more often. Like, just, you know what I mean? Think about 40 years ago. You were getting sold by a door-to-door salesperson, once every 4 months, and then your commercials on TV, and then if you actually went to a store. Now you're literally getting sold or like pitched, a couple thousand times a day? Like every ad that you scroll by, you're getting sold, every billboard, all this stuff. Like people are trying to sell you nonstop. So maybe that's part of it too. It's just that people are just getting sold so freaking much.
No, 100%. Like in logistics, like part of why it was so important to stand out is because of the competition. But now we just have competition in any type of sales.
Everything.
Yeah. So that's definitely like that changes what works. You know
so
what
I
mean?
wonder what the solution for salespeople is in general. Like, obviously, try not to sound like a salesperson, right?
I think that's the number one thing, because that I think applies super broad no matter what the industry is. Like if you are a really good salesperson, the way that you're going to know, like from the consumer side, is you're not going to know that person is selling to you. You're just going to think that they're the expert and they're helping you get to the solution. It's not going to feel like they're selling to you.
Well, I think that the reason that most people aren't able to actually get to that point, though, is because they pitch too soon. Like, they try to give the solution way before they actually know enough about what the person's problem is. Because if you know enough about what the person's problem is, then when you give the solution, you obviously are tying it back to what their actual problem is. And they know that you're only telling them, or they think at least that you're only telling them that because they said whatever. And most people like will get on a call and they'll say like, yeah, I just need my time freed up, man. Like I don't have any time to do X, Y, and Z. And they'll be 30 seconds in the call and be like, oh, well, dude, we have this thing that's completely automated and it frees up all your time. Just take this. And it's too soon. And everybody that pitches too soon, or like it's basically this. It's going in for the kiss on the first date, like 10 minutes in. It's like you haven't built enough to even try to sell yet. And the longer that you can delay the sell sometimes, it's not even selling. Like you're literally, then you are the true problem solver. And people try to fit square pegs in round holes too with sales. Like even if they know you're not the solution, they're going to try to make you. Yeah.
I think, that's definitely like super huge. I do think there's a lot of factors that play into it for sure. One thing that I've noticed is if you're a super good salesperson, you don't sound like other salespeople.
Right.
But if you're a super bad salesperson, you also don't sound like other salespeople. And that could make you actually better just because you don't sound like other salespeople.
Right. Where
so
you're better on accident.
Yeah. And then you think that you're really good, and then you tell everyone to be like you. But then if everyone started listening, then that would be the new average. You know what I mean?
I think that's a thing too with sales is that like there's all these like sales gurus, right? That are like, do it this way, say it this way, slow down, talk like this. Like, I don't know if you've seen the dude that's like, no, you get on the phone and you say, oh, Jim, and you fumble your paper a little bit and you
Jeremy
say,
Renner.
oh, I don't know his name.
Yeah,
the like blonde dude.
I think so.
Yeah. I feel like it is so much harder for people to fake their personality. Like we had talked about this a little bit with somebody that just like, if we try to push them to be totally fake, like they're instantly going to sound like a salesperson, to where that doesn't work for everybody. Like everybody has these gurus that are like, you literally need to say it exactly like this, and you need to have this inflection in your voice, and you need to whatever. And that's why people hate salespeople, because they're like, I can tell that is you selling. Like that is not you. That is a fake personality.
Yeah, like wearing the mask. Like when you sound like you're wearing the mask and it doesn't sound authentic, that's definitely super important, because I guess what is sales resistance or what does sales resistance do? It destroys the trust that they have. But if you wear a mask, even if they don't think that you're selling, it's still going to destroy the trust that they have, because you need the trust to get the sell. So, and then also if everybody's trying to sell a certain way and everybody's like, oh, like if everybody listens to the guru and everybody pitches how the guru says, let's say, then now the consumers are just going to know that when you sound like the guru that you're selling to them, right? That's why you just have to be dynamic. It's not just like one master script. It's what is everybody else doing, and then just don't do that. That's pretty much how you close, in my opinion. Because then you can apply that to any industry, because what everybody does in different industries changes. So that's why, like, you can't just say, oh, well, I'm not saying like a good salesperson can't be good in a bunch of different industries. They for sure can. But there's definitely like variability. It's not just, sales is not just, it is just sales, but it does change. Like the strategy changes, and how you sell changes based on the industry and the product and stuff like that. Like,
for sure.
Even if like you're trying to close people in one call in logistics, like that's what I'm saying. Like you can be super good at it and it will not work.
Right.
But
well, I'm curious to this, because I know that I've said this. I don't know if you've ever been like, yeah, I agree or not. I think Cam has said yes to this. Of all like professional skill sets, do you think that sales is like the number one skill set that somebody could acquire, just if their whole outcome is like having a successful life? If that is the goal, is just having a successful life, and you had to pick one tool to use, would you say that is sales?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like talking in absolutes just in general, but I do think that sales is the most broadly applied skill that I can think of.
Exactly. Hold on, let me jump in real quick. I think that sales is like a combination of a lot of other things, like being a chameleon. What do you guys call that? Where you read the other
personality
person? Mirroring. Yeah. It's that. It's also sometimes just straight up lying, or just acting, or whatever you want to call it. Like what you said about the gurus. Some people just can't act. Like they're not actors.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I feel like the way to put it is, to know sales, to actually get good at sales, you just have to have a bunch of other like micro skill sets. Like you have to be a good communicator. You have to have good body language. You have to have, you know what I mean? If you're trying to literally master sales, it forces you to do
conscientious
Yeah.
of like them,
right.
how they are receiving what you are saying and how to pivot from what you're saying.
You have to be humble to take good feedback. You have to be coachable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very, you
have to have some wit.
tuned.
You have to get some wit. Yeah, like there's a ton of micro skills that fall into sales, I think.
So without knowing the other options, I think, yeah, definitely. Like of what to pick. Is it sales or is it like good culinary skills? You know what I mean?
Yeah, like that. I mean,
would say probably sales.
Carpentry, finance, like.
Well, what about stuff like emotional intelligence? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That those would be the devil's advocate.
This is a good question. What if at the peak of each category, could you turn that into a sale and into like a sales thing? So if you're really good at emotional intelligence, like if you had a very strong radar for emotional intelligence, could you turn that into somehow a sales thing? Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, I think emotional intelligence makes you good at sales, if that's what you're saying. Like
okay, so I'm saying a category outside of sales, because sales is like a cornucopia of multiple other things. It's a conglomerate of other things.
That's why I think that it is which I feel like I know what you're saying. It's easy to like, because it's an umbrella. It's like obvious for it to be the number one skill set. But then I feel like then why aren't more people trying to get good at sales? You know what I mean? Like why aren't?
Well, it's hard. It is hard.
It is.
I like this is the way I.
But
think
it's like not like say that you. Sorry, not to cut you off, but if you spent 2 years trying to get really good at finish carpentry. Finish carpentry is really hard to be a good finish carpenter. That doesn't apply pretty much anywhere else. Like where else are you going to use that skill set? You know what I mean? But with sales, it's like the whole way that you're working towards that, you're literally gaining skills that apply to everything else. Even if you were going to school to be a doctor, you should learn sales because you have to sell your patients to trust you. You have to sell the people to work for you. You have to sell whatever, you know what I mean? You should even learn sales. I don't think that there's anybody that shouldn't. Teachers should know how to sell because you would know how to communicate with students better. And
yeah,
I think the quality of your life is solely dependent, or it 90% dependent on how well you sell, probably 80% dependent, maybe.
Yeah, I mean,
in America,
I would no joke say that like it's not obviously directly tied because I feel like I had good skill sets and I had a really crappy life at one point, but I do think that without that skill set, it would have actually been even crappier though. Like if I was at rock bottom, it kept me just above rock bottom just because I was good at sales. You know what I mean? So I could still keep a girlfriend because I could sell. Like, don't pay attention to my life's in shambles, you know? So I could still keep something decent happening in my life just because I was good at sales.
Yeah. So your question is why do more people not try to get good at it?
It almost seems like people actually lean away from it. Like they're like, oh, I don't want to be a sleazy salesperson.
Well, part of it is probably
this is me just thinking out loud at this point.
Yeah, but you understand sales super, super well, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's something that you're super interested in and something that you're good at. So you understand it super well. So not everybody understands it. So not everybody even thinks that sales applies everywhere.
That's what I was going to say.
Think sales. Go ahead.
Yeah, that they just don't see the value in it.
No, because
outside of selling,
they're just associating sales with just like a car salesman who turns off the codes to the car and sells it to you. Like that's what they're thinking about, not actually like what sales is and critically thinking about like how it applies to a bunch of different things. So that cuts out a bunch of people, I think. Another thing is a question that you have to answer is, can everybody learn everything? Which I know you don't.
I'm not letting you drag me down that path.
But like, let's say acting. Like I think acting is for sure sales. And what made me think of this is I watched a Wolf of Wall Street clip with it was going through the Wolf of Wall Street room and they were all reading off the script.
Oh.
So then I asked myself, I was like, wait a second. So if I was on the other end of that, like let's say this is a closed one call industry. If I'm on the other end of that call, are they going to be good at selling to me? Because I'm looking at the salesperson, from like the camera, and it seems like they would be good. So then you have to put yourself on the other end. It's like, yeah. So does that mean actors can sell? Because they just have to act like they can sell. And if they're a good actor, then they can sell. You know what I mean? But you can also just say that acting is selling and that bad actors just can't sell, because the whole point in sales is you're bad at sales when I know that you're selling, and you're bad at acting when I know that you're acting. So like that's literally the exact pinpoint. Like if I show you a person who's acting and I say, is this real or is this an actor? Like literally the differentiator is, can I tell that they are acting, right? It's the exact same thing as sales.
That should be our number one premise for interviews.
I know, that's what I was saying.
Number one.
Like we should just give them a skit and then.
Oh yeah, with skit, I can't say the name, but the clip that you showed me, and it was like, look how bad this is. And then, I forgot that you were like, oh yeah. But then we can just literally do that for the interview. Like, because if you can act, then you probably can sell.
If you can't fake cry, we're not going to hire you.
I wonder if that would be your best pool to pick from if you were trying to do a movie and you wanted actors. If you hired them based on how well you think they could sell. So like the opposite of what we're doing. The opposite of the conversation you just said. Where
Yeah. If it works one way, it works the other way.
Because maybe that's just it. Maybe it is somewhat of an act. We'll break down what an act is. Is it like mastering the control of your body, or maybe lying to your own self to muster up the correct?
For acting, you have to have all of that same type of stuff. You have to have good communication skills. You have to be able to personality mirror. You have to have emotional intelligence. You have to
take
have
for instance,
all of those things. You have to be witty. You have to whatever. So I've never really thought that acting would be like the exact same skill set almost, but it probably would be, because if you're a really good actor, one of the things that I've hit on and like said to Dylan was like, we're not training master closers. We're just training master communicators. Like we just need to train people to be masters at communicating, and then sales just happens. So with acting, maybe it's like the same type of thing, to where like if you can act, you could definitely sell, because the product doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you're selling. We can show you the product, but if you can do that one thing, then you can be a great salesperson.
The thing that comes to mind is the Kane video that we shot.
Yeah.
I tell you right now that it does not feel, I'll watch it today. It doesn't feel like you're selling.
Like fake.
Yeah. I mean, it literally, you're covered in sweat. You obviously just used them. You get in your truck. I don't know. Maybe it's like a documentary almost.
Dude, what if so what we might have to cut this in case it's a little thing that we just figured out. Yeah. What if we just go to the acting school here, or like the place, and just like, who wants to become a salesperson?
Seriously.
To make more money.
I'm just saying there might be something to that.
Well, part of what gave me the idea too, on top of that clip, was that you're a really good actor.
Ouch.
So
I don't ever act.
Yeah,
I
but
only sell.
In our ads. Oh, yeah. I see what you're saying. One and the same.
It's the opposite. Yeah, that's so crazy. Man, so could I be a good actor?
100%. I think you're one of the best actors. Didn't I just say that to you, Dill, the other day? Like if I was ever shooting a movie, I was saying it to I think my parents. I was like, man, so my background is I was shooting films and stuff. And so I'd always have an actor to work with or whatever.
Right.
And you can really tell who can act and who cannot, and who's doing it and who's going to have a long time acting and who's not going to have a long time because they're just not good. And so when it came to you, I was always telling them like, man, I have got it so easy. I literally walk up, I give him 3 prompts. I say, this is the feeling, this is the vibe. We need to say X, Y, Z. Step here, step here, step here. All right, 3, 2, and then we shoot a Kane ad and gets 2.9 million views. And it's their best ad so far.
Well, you know what I think that a lot of that is, though, is not me being a great actor. It's you know how to like push the exact right button to get me to do the exact right thing. Like we were shooting that ad the other day. We had 8 takes, 9 takes, 10 takes. He said that one sentence and I was like, okay, got it. All right, that's all I need. Not to pivot too much out of that, but I think that is one of the biggest things that makes business and stuff so hard is things like the PayPal Mafia and all of these things where it's just like the people and the time and the place and everything just lined up so perfectly. We have that going on for sure. Like I know in 10 years, we're going to look back and we're going to be like, how the hell did we get that lucky that Dylan and Cam and Cheyenne and Jake and all these people just happened to be free, take the job, have all the right skill sets, and it just, boom, like worked perfectly. Because that's what happened with PayPal Mafia. But I feel like is kind of discouraging for business because how many people, I don't know the number, I heard it somewhere, but it was like, I want to say it's like over 90% of businesses never do more than $1 million in revenue, ever. We crossed 1 million in the first year. We're scaling way past that now, obviously. Right. So, like, how many people even actually have the chance to try to shoot at that? And then for what all has to line up, like, even if you're a freaking workhorse as like an entrepreneur and a business owner, you got to have a good amount of stuff line up and like fall in the right places to really get to $1 billion companies and all that stuff. Like, I think that's why when you hear founders that have been like crazy, wild, successful, they're like, yeah, there was definitely some luck involved.
Yeah, it's almost just like the better you are just reduces the amount of luck that you'll need. Like, it's not like if you're super, super, super good, like super good at hiring, super good at finding the right people and all that stuff, you still need luck. It's just less luck.
Yeah. That's probably exactly where we're at, honestly, is we've all done pretty good and we're all good. So we need a lot less luck. So then when the luck does happen, it's just like crazy rocket fuel.
Right.
Because we're already kind of ready for it. Well, it's the whole, what's that saying? Like, fail to prepare, prepare to fail, right? Like, we are already so prepared for the luck to happen that when it happens, we're just like, choom. Yeah. Because that same luck could happen to somebody that wasn't prepared for it, couldn't even like capitalize on it, and it just takes them to 1x or 2x or whatever.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to think about this stuff too because you never know how much luck is actually involved because it seems like a lot of the time the right people end up in the right places, and you don't know when they don't. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm.
That's where you have to be really good.
What do you mean?
As a business owner or the CEO or whatever, that's one of the things is like, say that I got crazy lucky finding you and you having the skill set and all that stuff, but I did bring you in and put you on the creative team.
Yeah.
And I think because you would still crush it on the creative team probably. So I just think that you're in the right spot and you 2x the creative team. But really, if I put you in operations in the spot you're at now, we 50x the whole business.
Yeah, no, I think that is super, super important to like, it's an ongoing thing. It doesn't stop to like always look at your employees and figure out if they're in the right spot and if you're maximizing like their ability. Because just like, you know, our salespeople, like we want people tied to outcomes. And obviously it's the same thing with any employee. Like we want to put them into a spot where they can get the best outcome. And then we want to tie them to that outcome because we're tied to that outcome.
Well, let me ask you this then, because one of the things that is like the most curious to me is the difference between like people that have abilities but still choose to like work in a job versus people that have abilities and choose to like have their own business. What is it that like you're a smart dude, obviously, could probably go be successful doing whatever. What is it that makes you decide like, okay, I'm going to go with this business specifically? Like it doesn't have to be me, but just like, what is it that you look at? Because I feel like we've had the great resignation, right? Of like where everybody's like, nobody wants to work. People are quitting their jobs. It's like, you got to put the minimum wage to $1,000 an hour or nobody's going to work, whatever. And then you have people that are saying like, well, I need the culture to be right. And then obviously the boomers are like, you don't need culture. Like, shut up and show up and just work until you're retired and stop crying. So I'm curious, you're a good amount younger than me. Like, what is it that people are actually looking for from like an employer to be able to make the jump to go with somebody at this point?
I don't know if I can speak broadly. I can tell you what I'm
just
looking
even you.
for.
Yeah, just even you.
Well,
Because I feel like you are the candidate that a
two-
lot of people are looking for. Younger, smart, you know what I mean? Like, has some experience, has
Yeah.
options. How do you capture the people with options?
literally the only thing, one of the biggest things that I learned at TQL was that I'm good at sales, but that I shouldn't be in sales. You know what I mean? Like how I think, I can probably find a better way to use that than just sales. You know what I mean? So my strategy with TQL was, it wasn't anything really about the company. It was like identifying the opportunity and kind of just analyzing the opportunity and seeing if it was something that I wanted to pursue. But then the reason I switched from TQL to you is because I knew that you would put me where I should be just based on those 2 interviews or whatever. And I also knew that you would tie me to the outcome. And I was confident enough that if I am put where I should be, that the outcome is going to be super good. So that was like the next risk. You know what I mean?
So when you're saying tied to the outcome, I feel like that could be in a couple different ways. One, like employee equity plans, right? So it's like what we have set up here. What else does that look like to you? Because you came into this not thinking that you were going to get any equity or that whatever. Or I don't know if you assumed that you would or wouldn't. I guess I shouldn't say that.
No,
but that wasn't on the table when we initially started.
No, I did. I assumed that you were going to do employee equity plans, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Just from certain comments, like in the interview of like I think in the first phone call, like you said, oh, maybe we'll sell this and then we'll all be rich, whatever. Like to me, that's saying employee equity.
Gotcha.
So I did make that assumption. But I think that is 100%.
Did that weigh heavy on your decision?
It did. Yeah. No,
Gotcha.
I don't know, because I wouldn't have been tied enough to the outcome, I don't think.
That's what I was going to ask is like, are raises or advancement or whatever, is that tied enough to the outcome?
Well, it depends. But there's also 2 factors. So like number 1, I knew you just generally just from like all the content stuff. And at my age, it's also super important, not just like monetarily, but to learn skills because I have enough time for them to manifest. Mm-hmm. So that was one thing I'm looking for, just like being around people who were smarter than me. So that definitely weighed into it. The best way to tie people to outcomes, like in a business, is definitely the equity, because you're basically, and you can give them an option too between equity or salary. But with equity, sorry, not like salary, but like a bonus, whatever,
yeah.
Or not a bonus, but like a raise.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
But with equity, you're forcing them to take the bet with you. You know what I mean?
Right.
With a salary, it's like, okay, or with a raise, it's like, here's your reward. But with equity, it's you're not rewarded unless we all succeed. So that is true outcome tying, and that's the best way to do it. So like which is what I was saying earlier, like if you want to really try to duplicate like people who are or duplicate yourself as the business owner, the best way to do that truly is equity, because that's when they actually have their eggs in the same basket as you do.
Yeah.
And if they are as capable as you are, like if you find someone who is as capable as you, the best way to, because like let's say like you, for example, like if you went to join another company and you were at you were at a very low equity percentage, it's not going to encourage you to put in just as much effort as the founder. Like the founder for sure is going to be going crazy. Mm-hmm. And you maybe just out of respect for yourself can't do that. You know what I mean? Like you might be doing your own business thing on the side,
right?
Because it doesn't make sense for you to do it. You're going to extract everything you can from the opportunity, but you can't treat it as if it is yours, because it's not. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that's something that you run into and you really have to think about.
See, but So, well, one, that's exactly what we have done. And that was the actual, I don't even think you know this part, but that is the conversation that I had with every person that was here at one point was, do you want salary, bonus, or do you want equity? And I explained it just as that, like you're taking the bet with us or you're just guaranteeing yourself, you know, a good outcome. Because there's no guarantee with the equity. What is like so key to what is happening here and like the team that we have is every single person chose equity. Every single person. Which to me was like huge indicator of we got the right people because not everybody would take that. Like that's not something that everybody would do. Even if they thought that there was a good chance of success, because there is the chance of nothing, which we're a 2-year startup, like there's still a chance of nothing. Even though we obviously think we have a high chance of success, a lot of people wouldn't take that risk. But I feel like that is where it is two things. One, it's really tricky, but two, you have like, as the owner of a business or the CEO or even just like the leader of a sales team or whatever it is, you have to be able to like take what's in your brain and what you think the outcome is going to be and actually get people to get people to believe that same outcome, because then the smaller percentage is if it's the whole of the grape or a little piece of the watermelon is still better because they actually believe in the watermelon, that it's $1 billion business. So I don't care that I only own a small fraction or whatever. So I think
So you're saying
there's like a
reframe it
fine balance. Yeah, and then there's just like a really fine balance, because the tricky side of that is owners, I feel like good owners, right, want their people tied to the outcome and all that stuff, but most owners hold on to equity for dear life and don't want to give it up for any reason. And maybe that's the shift that businesses are going through of like, you can't just have regular employees anymore. Like they have to be tied to outcomes. And maybe that's like what's going to happen over time is people just have to be tied to the outcomes because nobody's willing to just only trade time for money anymore. And that's it. Or like time for a set amount of money anymore.
Yeah.
But that's very tricky.
Well,
because then everybody just owns everything.
No.
How does the founder, the owner, how are they incentivized for being the person that started this and all of that stuff?
Right. Well, I guess first of all, I don't think it's everybody, because in order to choose equity, you have to be long-term minded, and definitely not everybody's long-term minded. So there are people who would take the raise for sure. Yeah. And it's not that you can't find employees to just trade time for money, because you definitely can. Like the majority of employees just overall.
Well, I don't think that it's wrong for people to do that either.
No, not at all. It's just if you want to have somebody who, like, it really is, do you want to duplicate yourself? Equity is the tool to do that. And you're losing.
Just know what you're getting.
Yeah, like you're losing something because you're losing equity, and you're gaining something because tying people more to the outcome will change the results. It really will.
Right.
And the magnitude of how much you tie them to the outcome, because I know you're talking nominal amount, but also with nominal amount, it's like, yeah, if we get to $1 billion company, the nominal amount is XYZ. But then you have to look at what are the chances that we get to 100 million? What are the chances that we get to 200 million, 300 million, 400 million? So then, and they're not even thinking this consciously, right? This is unconscious, but it's like, they're looking at that and they're like, yeah, if I get $1 billion, I'm a millionaire. Or if we get to $1 billion, I'm a millionaire.
We laid it out on a chart when we showed everybody that.
But they're in their head, they're thinking like, what are the chances that we get to this, and that? What are the chances that my equity is worth this, and that? And that is going to factor into how much you're tying them to the outcome. Right. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, I mean, I think that it really has to deal with scale or how much you value your time as the owner of the business. Like probably those two areas the most, because like if you want to scale massive, the chance of you scaling massive and keeping 100% of your equity is like nearly impossible. And then two, it's like, how much do you value your time? because the whole trade-off of like, well, if I want to free up some of my time and I want people to work like it's theirs, then I have to give up some equity because, or I guess just pay really, really high salaries, maybe.
I don't think it works as well.
So maybe it's really just, like even high salaries don't work as well.
Yeah, I don't think so. Because
Yeah,
high
probably
salaries, because you got to think about how it's incentivizing you. Like high salaries, you would have to have the threat of losing your job if you didn't perform how you were expected to perform at all times in order for that high salary to incentivize you correctly. Because otherwise, if you just give somebody a high salary and you say, yep, you've proven whatever, blah, 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 then they're going to get that reward no matter what, which is equity is it's a conditional reward. It's like, if this works, then you get rewarded. You know what I mean? And that's why it's it's better to use that to incentivize.
Right. Yeah. So then, I mean, I think that it would really just come down to scale.
Yeah. There's definitely not one answer. Like you have to think about what you're getting out of things. And you have to think about what you're losing and then just make it individual, because it's going to change from business to business and person to person, what the founder's goals actually are. That's 100%. Like there's no answer or no one answer.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying, I think that that's really the only reason that equity comes into play is because it's all pretty much based on scale. Like if you say that you're okay being a mom and pop shop forever that just does like 30 grand a year in revenue and whatever it is, and you don't have any intention on scaling, you might not care. You don't need them tied
to the outcome. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't need them tied to it at all.
Yeah. Because then all you need is like them to keep doing their job, or they lose their job, which is kind of implied with
person in there.
That's implied with most jobs, but yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's interesting. It just, to me, a lot of people look at it like, my employees owe me stuff. Like I give them a job. They better show up and do X, Y, Z. They owe me so much. And I think the total opposite of like, I owe anybody that works for me everything. Like they have a million options of places to work. Like it's on me to make sure that they are happy and that I'm like proving to them why they chose to work here. And to me, equity is like a good incentive, obviously. And we're trying to scale and all that stuff too. But it's really always curious to me of like why people choose to go work certain places. Because I look at people that go to like these jobs and work for 40 years at the same thing. And they're just like, they start at 21 years old and they're like, yeah, I got this great job. So now I just have to be here till I'm 65 and then I'm good. Right. And I'm like, I don't understand how people do it. Well, like how people just make the decisions, it's very intriguing to me how people make those decisions.
Yeah, I think it definitely depends on like what they value. Like, I think a lot of people hate change and value stability, and that's why you get people who stay in the same job and have low. I think the average person has a pretty low risk tolerance too.
Do you
and
think
I think
that
you're
those
the
people,
opposite of all that, so that's why you don't understand it.
Yeah,
probably.
It doesn't even compute to me.
Yeah.
Do you think that those people are truly happy? Like that value the safety?
Yeah, I don't.
Like, let's say the guy that got job at P&G at 20 years old was making way more than all of his friends, worked his way up P&G's ladder a little bit, and retired at 65.
Yeah, I don't think their happiness is necessarily contingent on what their values are. I think it's probably more related to like what their values are and how closely their life align with those values. Like, for example, your values are being super high risk and doing new things, learning new things, building new things, doing that all the time. So as long as your life lines up with that, you're probably going to be pretty happy. And if their values are stability, making more money than their friends, walking around with some extra serotonin, like if that's their values and their life lines up with that, then they're probably going to be pretty happy too.
Yeah, I don't know. That's also a weird thing that I think about a lot. It's just like, I look at people like my father-in-law and I'm just like, he is like the happiest dude that I know. And he worked at Dominion for 40 years or something like that and had lived in the same house pretty much the entire time, has pretty much the same routine the entire time. He's like the most dependable, like best person I know. And it doesn't compute to me though. How? Like, I don't understand how, but I think it's just because like my brain is wired so differently that I can't even wrap my head around it.
Better the devil you know than the devil you don't.
Explain that one to me.
Yeah.
I think that kind of talks about risk tolerance a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are willing to risk meeting a deeper or more stressful, more evil job or whatever, a crappier existence,
Right.
by changing things up or whatever. And some people just rather stick with the pain of their, like the pain that they're used to. So better the devil they know than the devil they don't.
See, well, that's my
I don't-
question though. Is
no.
there pain though? Like,
Well,
is there actually underlying pain in that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that you're like anything that you said is wrong, but I definitely don't think that that's the whole story, because there are definitely people that do enjoy the same thing every day in the routine and doing the exact same thing every day. There's for sure people who value that and want to do that, which that's not
And that is
the devil that you know. That's not a devil. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that is, I think that is my question. Is
How?
no. Is that an actual 100% like achieved it positive outcome for some people? Like, is that true?
Or are they just like tricking themselves, is what you're saying?
Or are they just swallowing the rest?
Do you think that they could say the same thing about you?
I think that if I stopped pushing, then yes. I think if I never stop pushing, then no, it's impossible.
For them to question if you're truly happy with
No.
the values that you have.
No, not if I'm truly happy. No, hell no. Like, people like me are almost never like truly happy ever. We're happy for a split second, and then it's like, okay, that's gone.
Right.
Let's figure it out. No, I'm saying if they actually are happy, just saying like, okay, this is it. Baseline, like, I know I got my safety net, whatever. Are they truly happy? And I don't think that they can question whether or not I am working towards being the most happy that I could be. I don't think that they could question that if I am constantly pushing. But I'm saying I could question if they are working towards the most happy that they are, or that they could be, if they stop.
Yeah, but what if you achieve everything you want to achieve?
Hold on. I think I understand what he's saying. I just now got it. Because I've seen the same thing in people. Because I'm more on your side of thinking. Have you ever heard the story of when Alexander the Great like raids a monk, like a monastery? So he raids this monastery. I'm gonna probably butcher it, but he raids this monastery. There's a bunch of monks praying and stuff. He bursts in, him and all his army or whatever, and tells them all to like hands up or whatever, something like that. Walks in, and the head monk is still doing his thing, sitting crisscross applesauce, praying or whatever. And he basically, the monk says to him, like, when are you gonna, like, will you ever stop conquering or something like that? And he's like, no, like I've conquered the entire world. Like I'm still going. I can always do more. I can always conquer more. And I am the greatest because of it. Something along those lines. And the monk responds with, he says, I have conquered the need to conquer the world. And I feel like...
So you lose.
In that scenario, that is you, but your next evolution, which I think is mine in a way.
Yeah, but the thing, I don't think that lines up at all.
Well,
because my need isn't to conquer the world. My need is to drain every ounce of what God has given me as possibility out. Like, that's it. That's my only goal. My goal is that it's not to conquer the world, because I don't have a goal to be a billionaire or to own X amount of things or to have whatever it is. My goal is just to make sure that whatever it is that God gave me as my ceiling, that I do everything I can to hit that ceiling.
But will you ever be content?
No.
No.
Because I won't be either, I don't think.
No.
But the
I
monk,
know that I
I
won't
feel
be.
like the monk is content.
Okay, but exactly. So
That's the person working the job.
I've conquered the need to find contentness, is what I'm saying. I have conquered the need to find that contentness, because I
He
know.
just flipped it.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. I just know that, like,
Hold on. The monk said, I have conquered the need
Right.
to conquer the world.
right. And I'm saying I've conquered the need to be content.
He's saying, I have conquered the need to hang on, I messed it up.
I know what you're saying. though.
I've conquered the need to not want to conquer the world. That's what you're
Correct.
saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So I
And
guess
I'm saying-
you're addressing a widespread complacency of just like society, of just being lazy and
Yeah. No. Not even just lazy. Just not pushing to potential. Like, just not stopping at any point before you die is like the best way I guess I can put it.
Yeah, but I feel like the conversation has pivoted, because I feel like we started off talking about, like, are they really happy doing that stuff? That's how we started
That's what
off.
I know, but that's still where I'm at, because I feel like if you stop at some point, I feel like you can't be truly happy,
it seems like they
because
are,
I
though.
feel like that's what I'm saying, and that's why I'm saying my father-in-law. I see the dude on a regular basis. He is happy as hell, and it can't be fake happy, because his wife's just as happy, because he's so damn happy.
Right.
So I'm like, it can't be fake. The dude looks like he's 20 years younger than he is. He's super healthy. He's got money. He's all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't understand how you could actually be happy, though, because I know you are a great man. Like, he is literally probably the best man I know. But you are not the full you that you could have been. And you have to know that. Like, he has to know that.
Yes, yeah, I feel like that last step is like that's icing on the conversation. That is a lot harder to get to. But I feel like the
Are
first
you just
step,
saying, is he happy the whole time he's doing it?
I'm saying, well, I think that's, like, to some extent you're projecting your values on
Right.
other people. So, like, you're
No,
saying,
I know I am.
yeah. Which I think that's why I was trying to flip it around on you, like, to say that could they say the same thing about you, is because I was trying to see if we could create a reverse scenario where they're projecting their values on you. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I'm not saying that I'm right or wrong. I'm just saying I know that they couldn't ask that same question about me if I was continuously pushing towards it.
I know, but that question is your value.
Meaning,
You see what I'm saying?
could your
That's what you care
father-in-law
about.
say to you, hey, man, why don't you
He has.
dial it back? There we go.
Are you ever going to just be happy
He
with what you
has.
have?
He says, is there any point that you're going to think that enough is enough? And I've told him, no. It's
So
not
you
gonna
haven't
happen.
conquered the
So
need
that
to
is-
conquer the world?
It's not, no. I've conquered the need to not
Conquer
be
complacency.
content. Yes.
Right.
Or to be content, I guess.
That's a double
Because
negative.
why?
But
why?
in his
but
eyes-
why else would you?
Why would you what?
What other reason is there to stop besides contentment and complacency?
Maybe time better spent.
Rather than pushing towards potential? That's all I'm asking. I'm saying, like,
I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't even, so like people's relationship with God, right? Your relationship with God should never end until you literally draw your last breath. You should always be pushing to get closer to God, because we know that we will never be where we're supposed to be. Why isn't everything else like that? And if it's not, I feel like there's no way that people can truly be happy.
So you're really saying constantly improvement rather than being stagnant in areas of your life.
Yes, because that's what that is, I feel like.
I see.
The same job for 40 years, the same everything, all that stuff. It has to be. Unless, I guess this would be the only out, is unless that is the peak. You feel like that you can literally get no better.
And
in
the
any
peak
area
is different for people.
And some people just hit it at 20 years old and they just ride the peak. Seems very unlikely to me. Either way, one of the things that goes on in my head, but yeah, that is one of the main driving factors in me as a whole human being.
Right.
Is I am deathly, when I say deathly afraid of complacency. Extremely.
It's obvious.
Yeah. Only because I feel like that's where men go to die. Like that is the place where men start to die.
Do you remember that meeting we went to?
Meeting
For the event we wanted to put on here in Lima that one time? I don't want to put names on it just in case, but
yes.
remember that guy?
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
I would rather chew my limbs off. Seriously. I really would. I would do anything.
rather die.
I would do anything besides be that. Yeah, we're talking about we're just talking I don't even know how to frame it without throwing somebody completely under the bus. We're just talking about the most you can tell this guy just had no intentions on ever being in the place that he is. He wears it all over his...
You could see the rest of his life was going nowhere. And he knew it.
He knew it and he hated it. And he hated it.
In his face. It was crazy.
So he's not happy.
Correct. There's no way.
If purgatory was embodied, that's pretty much...
Yeah. But that's, I don't know. That's just the thing. Like, I think that it is a plaguing thing in general. But I think that it's something that it's like made very clear by God, like that you should be trying to live to your absolute fullest potential and never stop growing. And somehow we've all pretty much gotten to the point of being like, so I'm deathly afraid of complacency, and I'm super complacent in areas of my life. Like, I'm clearly not sitting at 2% body fat and jacked and can run 100 miles. Like, so I have found complacency in some areas. But yeah, it's just a very...
Yeah, you could not run 100 miles.
Yeah.
We found that one out.
Exactly. Real hard way too. The real hard way. I don't know. It's just a very interesting thing to me. I
mean, it's hard for me to like refute anything because I do like playing devil's advocate, but I agree with you on like the values. Like my values are similar. But I guess all of this, I think we're somewhat describing a value. And I think that things change when values change. So like you're assuming that everybody's baseline should be because God told us to be the best version of ourselves.
Even if we take God out of it, do you...
Well, yeah, but let's say you're assuming that it is the moral hill to always improve at everything. But what I'm saying is that is your value and your goal, and literally not everybody has that value and goal. And when you don't have that value and goal, then the conversation completely changes. And I agree with you. Like,
I know, but no. But I think that is my point, is that I think that every single person actually does have that same value and goal. They just choose to swallow it.
Then how would they ever be happy? Yeah. So that's your question.
100%.
So your question is not how are they happy? Your question is,
are they actually? How could they be?
Well, a better question is
every single person I think has
that
same thing.
Do they all have the same thing?
Right.
That's
I think
the question.
They have to.
One step back.
Yeah. How do they not?
I don't know, but that's the question. Because once that's answered, then we can answer the second one.
Do we think that they do?
No, I don't. Because then they wouldn't be able to be happy. I think there are definitely people who are happy without constantly improving.
I definitely think so.
Really?
I'm with, yeah.
So let me just put it to you this way, and then I think we can wrap this part up.
Yeah.
So,
actually, we need to wrap the entire thing up.
But. Okay. So I am happy. I am not as happy as I know I could and should be. So I'm still happy, currently still happy. And I think that that is the happiness that they stay in and just ride out forever. Exactly the happiness that I'm in right now. They just ride that out forever, even though they know they could be happier. They just choose to sit in their current happiness.
You're wrong. No, I'm just kidding.
We're going to find out at some point.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that one. I feel like you do have to assume things to get to that answer.
Is it not going to be the most frustrating thing in the world if like you get to heaven and they really don't just let you just open every box and just find the answer to every question?
Yeah.
I'll be extremely frustrated because I have so many boxes to open and find answers to. Anyways, okay, cool. So yeah, we got a little sidetracked, but that's kind of the direction that we want to take stuff, man, is we want to dive deep on business stuff. We want to keep the personal development conversations going, but we want to shift this a little bit more into just like getting to know the people that are here, that are behind Building Legacy, that are behind Easy Electronics, and just giving insight and hoping that we can provide value in any way possible, even if it seems like a crazy conversation. But we're not concerned with that. We're just concerned with being transparent and letting you guys in. So until the next episode, next week, we'll see you guys then.